Well, Remi Piet is senior partner at the consulting firm Embellie Advisory. He joins us now to discuss the incident. Remi, this was a flight from one EU nation to another. First, I have to ask, is there a recent precedence for something like this?
I mean, there's no precedent from a head of state to actually ask for his military and MiG-29 to divert a plane to have one of his dissidents, in prison in his own country. No, obviously not. And the case that obviously in that case, it was a Ryanair flight that departed from one EU capital city, Athens, to another EU country, Lithuania, Vilnius in Lithuania, makes it very much at odds, obviously, with and with significant impact on geopolitical level for a crisis, yet another crisis in the region. Lukashenko is, desperately trying to get control, his grasp on the country. He obviously, the last elections in 2020 were obviously rigged, and actually this is actually recorded by most observers, and if not everyone. And he's trying to, prevent any kind of bloggers or journalists that were able to flee the country during the crisis last year to continue, giving some news about the actual existence of a demonstration and trying to quench any kind of opposition in his own country in the last dictatorship in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, he's already in exile, so why is Roman Protasevich so valuable to Minsk?
Well, Protasevich, even if he was actually outside of the country, was animating a channel on Nexta, which is a Telegram channel, where you actually can watch the news on YouTube or other different mediums such as Facebook. And he was therefore able to pass along information from the Timoshkaya team, which was the opponent to Lukashenko in elections last year. And therefore, through those mediums, they were able to pass information without being under the control of a regime inside Belarus that controls any kind of internet connections or communication means. And therefore, that's why it's so critical for Tymoshenko to quench any kind of dissenting voice from outside the country also, and use the subterfuge to be able to bring down the plane in Minsk. And now, that the Protasevich will actually be facing charges of domestic terrorism, which are, potentially leading to death penalty in Belarus.
A lot of European officials quick to condemn this. They used what appears to be strong language, some saying not even strong enough. But beyond that, what could they practically do, given that the West seems to have lost most of its leverage over Alexander Lukashenko, as you noted, Belarus's contested leader? How likely is that he would even respond to any pressure?
So there's obviously the possibilities of increasing sanctions on Belarus and especially people close to the regime and Tymoshenko himself. So there will be an answer from the European Union. Obviously, there is also a component of strengthening the diplomatic talks and resolution at the United Nations. And here again, we're in a case of a country which is in between the European Union and Russia is obviously a very important player in the region. There seems to have been sometimes warming of relationship between some of countries in Europe and be able to talk to Putin on the case of Belarus. We know the Minsk protocol also on Ukraine. But the question will be at the geopolitical level, but also at the domestic level, what will be the reaction by the different actors?
And lots of people asking, bigger picture here, what are the potential consequences of all this for international air travel?
Yeah, absolutely. So that this is a precedent that will, obviously will be followed. In that case, the president of Lithuania and Poland have asked to, consider that the airspace of Belarus was considered unsafe. Obviously, this is a hijacking of a plane from one EU country to another one, and the immediate, you're going to see a rerouting of a series of planes. But the IATA will be involved in those conversations in terms of air traffic. The other issues is, as I was saying, looking at how the different superpowers around Belarus will be able to address that question. The case of Belarus is very different from the one of Ukraine. It has some similarities in terms of the geopolitical elements of Russia and Europe. But in case of Belarus, we're talking about a dictator in place since 1994 and constant rigging of elections and quenching of freedom of expression.